my soul song. This is 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 my soul.
Hi everybody, I'm Kevelyn Jenea, and I'm coming to talk to you about the D word. So what's the D word? What do y'all think it is? Like you can respond on a recorded video. Anyways, the D word is divorce. So it's one thing that is not talked about all the time because it has negative connotations attached to it. So I'm gonna just shed a little light because I'm a divorcee and I want to share my experience because this is real. 41% of all first-time marriages end in divorce. So that's pretty serious. And in, I believe, 1920s, the divorce rate was under 20%. And then it lowered in the 1950s to the 1960s to around 15%. So 41% is almost 50% of all marriages end in divorce, and that is not good. Divorce it has a lot of hurt, it's grieving involved. It affects almost every party. It affects your children. It affects friends, mutual friends that maybe you as a couple had. It affects parent relationships. My dad was really close to my ex-husband. And I just want to do a quick disclaimer because I'm not on here to talk about him or to talk about any of my exes. This is actually my second divorce. First one, I kind of got married young. I was really young. But there were also a lot of issues that I encountered even though we were young that I shouldn't have had to encounter, but I probably could have made another decision had I known what I know now. But my father was very close to my ex-husband, so it affected that too, and it really hurt my father to see us going through that. I mean, they would talk almost every day, and to now they don't even talk at all. That breaks my heart because they were really close friends. So divorce, it just affects everybody. Even the people that you think it doesn't affect, it does. It's like a breakup, a death. And I want to talk a little bit about grieving. People have compared divorce to death, but to me, it's never-ending death. It's a never-ending process because there really is no closure because no one's dead. And a lot of people have to go on seeing their ex, especially if they have children involved. And, you know, I have a child that's involved. So I still have to talk to him. I have to communicate, see him at times. And it can be very difficult when you're trying to get past the relationship, get past the divorce. It's very, very hard. And some divorces are traumatic. Mine was pretty difficult. And people view it in different lights. So I go to church. I love God. And, you know, divorce is looked at as negative. You're not supposed to divorce. Divorce is not supposed to happen in the Christian community, but it does. And sometimes it could be in the church community, we call it being unequally yoked. So you're just not on equal terms when it comes to finances or even your emotional health. What else? It's a whole bunch of things. Your spiritual health, like You know, one person could be more spiritual than the other. One could be better with finances than the other. One could have better emotional intelligence than the other. You know, one maybe can't control their anger or have problems in that area. It makes a whole lot of problems when you are unequally yoked. Okay. And that's pretty much what happened in my last marriage. We were unequally yoked. And the thing is, it takes two to fight for the marriage, you know. And I'm not saying that I was perfect, not at all, because I wasn't. You know, everybody has their role to play, you know, in a divorce. It's two parties. So I don't fully blame him because there were things that I could have did differently. But I will say, towards the end, you know, I really did some things to change. I asked God to change me, to do whatever change that needed to happen to save my marriage. And at the end of the day, like I said, if, you know, both parties are not wanting that, then it's not going to work. And I refuse to be in an unhappy marriage. And there were some things involved that I'm not going to discuss because I don't want to down my ex or make it seem like, you know, he was like the big problem or anything like that. But there were some serious issues in this past marriage. We were married for almost 10 years. And the effects that it had on me were devastating. I was devastated. I did not want the divorce, but a decision had to be made because I wanted my kids to be in a safe environment. I didn't want them to see their parents arguing, and yelling at each other or cursing. I didn't want them to see that because it's a cycle and eventually they'll repeat it. And I didn't want that, so I just thought it was best to get a divorce, to move on. Now, with that being said, we did do counseling, okay? A lot of counseling. We did extensive counseling with around 3 counselors. Plus, I had my own counselor twice. So I went to therapy, and I'm talking about years. So it wasn't like we did 3 sessions and that was it. No, we did extensive sessions with the first counselor, extensive sessions with the second one and the third one. And he had his own counselors as well. So it wasn't like we didn't try, because we did. Even when I left, I was in counseling. So while I was going through the divorce process, I was in counseling for several months. And the effects that it had on me was depression. I had, now I'm not saying that I haven't dealt with depression before, but this really brought out something in me. And I ended up having to take medication for a while. And people don't like to talk about that. But I did, and I am in church. I love God. I pray. I read my Bible. And yet I still had to take medication. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to get by. I remember my mother. She was so supportive. My dad, he was supportive too, but he really wanted us to stay together. But my mom, she was so supportive. She said, Kevelyn, you have to do what you have to do to get by. And she repeated that so many times to me. So supportive, so loving, and didn't make me feel bad about taking medication and going to counseling. Because I did. I went every week faithfully to counseling and took my medication. One reason why I got on medication because my kids were having a hard time. They were throwing a lot of tantrums, especially my youngest one. His biological father was who I was married to. So he went through a lot. He couldn't understand it. He couldn't process it. So I'm trying to process it. And then he's trying to process it. It was just so much on all of us, having to adjust to a new place and then shared parenting, having to share them. It was so hard. I remember crying for days at a time like this. It started out with days, then it turned into months. I would cry when I got up in the morning. I would cry when I was taking a shower. I would cry on the way to work, at work. Whenever I had free time, I cried. Came home crying. And it's like I couldn't control it, and I didn't want nobody to really know about it. I eventually said something, but it was just horrible. And I was dealing with death, like grief. And counseling really helped me to overcome quickly. Some people, say, I don't need counseling, just time. Well, sometimes time, it does take a lot more time, but I believe that me having the counseling and the support of my pastors, they were so supportive as well. My counselor, my mentor, they were just all such a blessing to me. And I even had people outside of that circle who I didn't even, I wouldn't even think that would be supportive. With that being said, there were some of my friends and family that did not want to see us split. All of my friends said something like, Kevelyn, are you sure? Like, you don't want to give him another chance? Because everybody loved him. I loved him. Are you sure he's sorry? He's ready. He wants to change. And he wants to, my response was, we've already been down this path so many times, and it was a repeat cycle, and I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, and I asked God, I said, God, show me if I'm doing the right thing. Show me, like, if the change is going to take place, show me. I will stay. But every sign that I had was not a good sign. It was a negative sign, and there was no change. So I had to go with what my spirit felt. And it was just the hardest thing. The first divorce I went through, we were young. I didn't have no kids. So it was a little bit different. I did extensive counseling with that as well. I did about almost a year because it was domestic violence involved. And so I went to 2 counselors. I went to my own counselor and I went to group therapy. So I'm very well accustomed to going to counseling. I think it's a wonderful thing. Some people think it's negative, but it is a wonderful thing to go to counseling because it really does help you talk. And someone broke it down to me. When you get divorced, you're used to having a spouse to talk to bounce stuff off of. But then when you get divorced, you're by yourself, or you're by yourself with your kids. So you're missing that other person that you used to talk to. So counseling is very important. And I'm trying not to make this video too long. I believe I'm going to do another segment on it. But I think pretty much I've discussed everything for this session. Like I said, this was just a hard time in my life, and I feel like that there's a lot of people that have experienced it. Know that you're not alone. And if you are in a domestic violence situation, please get help, because you're going to need help to get out. You're going to need help to move and get to a safe place for you and possibly your kids. It's very important. Some people stay in a marriage for their kids, but that's not the best. It's not always the best thing. You have to be willing to work on a marriage for you two, not just for the kids. So with that being, I'm going to end this segment. I hope you've enjoyed it. It is on a rather serious note, but like I said, think it's very necessary. Again, my name is Kevelyn Jenea. I've enjoyed talking with you about the D word. Have a great day.
This is my soul.